This week's match is against a little known guy named BlameTruth, I think it was. Some of you might have heard of him, some of you might not have. And this one is on Showdown because of reasons. I'm going to lead off with Rotom because that's what I usually lead off with against non-weather teams, and he leads off with Gliscor. I'm expecting Protect first turn so he can get his Toxic up, but I go with Hydro Pump anyway because it pretty much just tells him if he stays in, he's going to die, and that lets me get a Will-O-Wisp off on whenever wants to come in. From the PP side of things, kind of seems silly to waste one, but his team seems kind of offensively based anyway, so I'm probably not going to use all 8 regardless, so wasting one is not a big deal. I get a burn on his Rotom, and we're both going to Volt Switch this turn because that's what always happens between two Rotoms, is both of them always Volt Switch. And I decide I'm going to go to Ferrothorn because it's my only real thing to take a Volt Switch, and I'm going to have to deal with whatever comes in next accordingly. He decides to go to his Infernape, which I could potentially stay in T-Wave after living in close combat, but I'd be super low, and I kind of need this guy to deal with his Hydreigon a little bit later on. So I could go to Dragonite, but I don't know what kind of ape this is, so it could have HP Ice, and that's not a good thing for Dragonite to take. So on the off chance he wants to go for fighting, I'm going to go to Crobat. Even if he goes for fire, that'll tell me a lot. He goes for a physical fire move, so that tells me he's physically based. And Crobat being outsped on the next turn tells me that he's Scarfed. So Crobat dies, but it still does its job. It takes a few hits that I needed it to take, and it gives me some valuable information. It tells me his ape is Scarfed, and that means his Hydreigon probably isn't. So because I know he's Scarfed, I can go to Dragonite, I can go to Terrakion, I can go to Rotom. I decided to go to Rotom because he doesn't really have a good Rotom switch in except his own Rotom, which has already taken a big hit, takes another one, takes another burn hit, and it's not looking too pretty. We've already established that mine is faster, or at least won a speed tie. Because of how much Volt Switch did, I'm assuming he's either physically defensive or he's the same kind as mine. But if he's the same kind as mine, then that means I just won 2 speed ties, and if that's the case, then that's kind of very super fortunate in my favor. So like we already said, he doesn't really have a great switch into Rotom. I guess his best thing at this point would be Hydreigon, which is what he eventually decides to go to. But, his Gothitelle can't take 2. His Ape can't take 1. His Scizor is going to die to an HP Fire that he may or may not expect me to have. And his Gliscor can't take a Hydro Pump. So this turn I'm going to stay in and try and Will-O-Wisp him, because if he wants to be a Mixie set with Superpower, that's going to be the ideal thing to do. Unfortunately, my hit misses. He goes for Dark Pulse, which he could go for Dragon this turn because I'm not expecting it to be Scarfed. I'm expecting Expert Belt or something. But I decide, Ferrothorn has to deal with this thing eventually. And now I'm expecting a Fire move to come into play, so I'm going to try and stay in T-Wave. And he actually goes for Fighting, which that tells me a lot. That tells me, it's definitely not Scarfed at this point. And now that means I can absolutely deal with this thing. Like Terrakion could always kind of deal with it, and I was kind of tempted to go to Terrakion last turn, but I didn't want him to switch things up and go for Dragon, or Fighting. Fighting would wreck Terrakion too, so I felt like I had to do that. And because of the attack drop, I think I can live another Superpower, so I could either Leech Seed this turn, or I could go for Stealth Rocks and get those up. I figured Leech Seed would be fairly inconsequential because this Ferrothorn's pretty much dead anyway. It's kind of done its job. I kind of would like to use it against Scizor, but because I have Rotom at full HP still, and it's looking like it'll stay at full HP, and I've got 2 fighting dudes to handle this guy, plus a Dragon now that's faster than it guaranteed, I figured Ferrothorn just has to go at this point, and if I'm going to get 1 turn of Leech Seed recovery, that's not going to mean a whole lot. Stealth Rocks it is. So because he went for Draco in the last turn, he's -2, and that really just tempted me to go out into Dragonite. I'm very tempted to Dragon Dance, but he does have Gliscor. It could potentially have Ice Fang or Toxic, both of which would wreck me. And because of that, you can see me mousing over my Rotom down there because I kind of really expected, and I really almost went into Rotom. But in the end, I decided, I just kind of want to kill this thing, and it turns out to be a good, very, very fortunate play for me because in comes Gothitelle, and I get a hit off on that thing. If I'd gone for Dragon Dance, I would have been fine, but if I'd gone to Rotom, that would have really blown. And I'm expecting to bite the dust to 2 HP Ices here, but he actually runs a Specs Gothitelle. I couldn't switch. Shadow Tag had me trapped, and I wound up being faster than the damn thing. And after failing to KO it with my second Dragon Claw, which due to damage variation, he managed just to break my multi-scale. But I'm very surprised that I was faster than that. I don't really know what he was expecting to do. If he knew he would be Specs and therefore probably slower. Maybe he was expecting me to be bulky. I don't know. But in any case, my multi-scale's broken, and in comes Sizer. If this thing is banded, I'm probably going to be able to live, because I think the calc is right around 48 to 52, and it turns out I live at 1 hit point and get my roost off, and because it did 50%, or around 50%, I know 100% that this thing is choice banded. So that gives me a free switch in my Rotom. I can go for an HP Fire, potentially, but I decided, he's not going to stay in. So a Hydro Pump is my best bet in that case. And here I make what looks like a bit of a silly play, and this actually comes back to bite me a little bit later. But I decided I didn't want to risk a Hydro Pump missing. You can see me hovering over it on the bottom there. And I'm really thinking about going for it. But if it missed, I have nothing to deal with this Sizer. Dragonite can't take 2 Bullet Punches, which it would have needed to. And it can't deal with Gliscor. It could potentially deal with Infernape if it doesn't have HP Ice, but I felt like Dragonite was just my most expendable, and I didn't want to risk a miss. So that's what I went with. So I got a Breloom to threaten him with a Mach Punch. I know I didn't really expect him to switch, but he also doesn't have a good move to hit me with. He doesn't have Fire if he wasn't going for it against Ferrothorn, so I felt like I could live a Superpower. He could have gotten Parahax there too, so I felt like a Swords Dance was fairly safe. In comes Gliscor, and I'm really scared of this thing on the offset, but it turns out to be just fine because he has Earthquake, he does not have Ice Fang, he doesn't have Toxic. That is very good. He decides not to screw around, he just, with protecting and all that, and I commend him for it. He wouldn't have really gained anything, and he dies to my next bullet, so the crit didn't matter. I would have gotten 2 anyway, minimum. And in comes a Sizer, and I'm going to slow the next few turns down because the entire match hinges on them. So I do not expect my Breloom's Mach Punch, even at +2, to kill Sizer from where it's at. And at the same time, I'm expecting Sizer's Bullet Punch to KO my Breloom because it has less HP than Dragonite and less defense. So because of these facts, I have to predict him. Is he going to go for U-turn, expecting my Rotom to come in, or is he going to Bullet Punch? If he U-turns on my Rotom, Rotom dies, and then Bullet Punch sweeps the rest of my team. If he Bullet Punches my Breloom and I fail to KO, then same deal, I pretty much lose the game. So in the end, I expect him to go for Bullet Punch, and I expect Rotom to take a couple, and I predict right, but he gets a crit. So as you can see, Bullet Punch did 18 times 2, 36%, so if he rolls the same amount of damage, he's going to kill my Rotom. And this is where that Dragonite play comes in, because if I hadn't let Dragonite die, Dragonite could have come in, taken a Bullet Punch, well, after Rotom dies, of course. He could have come in, taken a Bullet Punch, gotten an EQ off, and then Mach Punch from Breloom would have KO'd this Sizer, and I would have been in the clear anyway. So that Dragonite play may have cost me, but my Rotom Wash hung on in the end. He rolled min damage on that turn, which I don't feel bad about because he did get the crit in the first place. So, yeah, tough titties for you on that turn. And that pretty much ends the game. Rotom Wash hung on, it killed the Sizer, and he's just got nothing left. His Infernape is basically useless because Breloom can come in and Mach Punch. Even without the defense drop, I feel like I would have been able to kill it. And Terrakion outspeeds it anyway, so it's pretty much just a user choice sweep at the end of the game. I decided to go with Mach Punch because I think Mach Punch is cooler. Anyway, thanks a lot for playing, man. It took me 3 tries, but I eventually got you, and it was just always really fun to play the guy that basically got me into the game. His videos were the first that I watched, and I wouldn't have even known about it. I wouldn't have met the awesome people that I hang out with now. And I'm gonna stop being savvy with it right now because it's kind of lame. So, good game. Thanks for playing. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys next time.